Hey, mamas. Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I am so glad you're here. I am going to dive into a topic that I don't necessarily love today, but I feel like is so important when it comes to being a mom. And that topic is vulnerability. So I don't know if you know this or if you realize this, but I'm kind of a private person. And believe it or not, it takes a lot for me to be vulnerable, especially in the Mama Work It brand or in business. But I've really tried to break through a lot of that, specifically in my writing, because I feel it's really important when you are sharing about, your life as a working mom or your leap from the corporate world to entrepreneurship. You have to get vulnerable. You have to go into those vulnerable stories in order to really explain the level of detail as to how those processes occurred or life unfolded in that way. But that doesn't mean that it's easy for me. That doesn't mean I don't necessarily get what I like to call the vulnerability hangover after the fact, which basically is like once I publish the work, whether that be on the blog or in the book, I have a moment where I'm like, what did I just do? What did I just say? Why did I think it was okay to share that? And I feel really vulnerable and worried and nervous and all the feels. And so it can feel really uncomfortable to me. And I think if I'm feeling this way, maybe you're feeling this way too. And I don't know if that's just a personality issue that I have or a character trait that is deeply ingrained in me, or it's a little bit of like the societal pressures out there that we're seeing and feeling. For example, maybe you feel like I'm a mom. I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to do all the things. I'm supposed to make it look easy and not lose my patience and appreciate every moment of every day because the years are short, or whatever it is you're telling yourself. Maybe it's more on like the leadership side, like I'm a leader. I'm supposed to have it together. I'm not supposed to stress out about things. I am supposed to know how to fix problems when they come up and know how to prevent things from going wrong. Maybe it's on the entrepreneur side. Like I'm a business owner. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to know how to be successful. I'm a time management expert. I'm supposed to always be organized and always be productive. And guess what? I rarely check all those boxes all the time. There are days I might feel like I am just nailing it at motherhood, but maybe my business is being totally neglected. Or there are days when I've got a really meticulously crafted schedule, but then my kid gets sick and I end up doing like 20% of what I thought I would. There are days I yell. A lot of days, actually. There are days I feel like a hot mess, and I'm supposed to be helping other people not feel like a hot mess. And the funny thing about that is I'm still pretty good at helping other people, just not always helping myself. I have a client who actually told me if she took 10% of her own advice, she'd be in a much better place. It's like so funny how it's so much easier for a lot of us to tell other people what to do than to actually do it ourselves, to actually implement it within ourselves, isn't it? So this vulnerability thing, even after 7 years in business, I struggle with it. Even after reading all the Brene Brown books, I can sometimes cringe at it. Even after working with several coaches and hearing that people connected with me because of a vulnerable story I shared or an experience I had that felt really similar to their experience, I still find it to be super uncomfortable. And you know how people say, like, if you've ever met someone and they're like, oh, I'm an open book. I get that a lot on the podcast, actually, with guests. I don't feel like an open book. I feel like I'm a closed book. Maybe not a closed book, but I feel like I'm a book who only opens up sometimes. So if you know me, you know I like to write. I've written 3 books to date, and I've also been part of an anthology called Boy Moms by Cara Forney. So I wrote and published my first book, Time Momagement, How to Get the Time You Need to Do the Things You Want, back in 2019. And And we just released the second edition of that in 2024. So if you haven't read it, definitely check it out, mamas. I wrote Word to Your Mother, A Mama's Guide to Journal Today and Slay Tomorrow back in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic when I was like struggling to create some sort of stability and routine in a very chaotic time period as a working mom of four. I wrote Biz Momagement, The Working Mom's Guide to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur in 2022 after my exit from the corporate world and my entrance into full-time entrepreneurship. And in fact, Mama Work It even started from my writing. It was a blog at first and it was called Work It Mama. And it was basically an online journal of experiences and advice from one working mom to another. So I love, love, love to write. It's therapeutic for me. It's a powerful way for me to use my voice. And it's honestly like one of those things I dream for myself, even to this day, that like one day I can hit the New York Times bestseller list. I am like totally manifesting this and writing to make that happen in my future. So in the meantime, it's been a while since I've really released anything other than blog pieces. And so I wanted to share a vulnerable story that I wrote. I want to share it with you here on the show. I'm also going to be publishing it on the blog, but I want to share it as a way to connect, as a way to grow, as a way to share with you that none of us have it all together. Like not the seemingly perfect influencers on IG, not the business owners or the corporate badasses, not the trad wives, the trophy wives, not the most confident or least confident people out there. None of us have it together all the time. But using the gifts we do have, I really think we can help each other feel just a little bit better by bringing that like special something to the potluck of life. So enjoy, my friends. I'm going to read it to you. If this episode resonates with you, I would love to have you join the Mama Work It email list where I write you a weekly note about all things working mom life. Lots of vulnerable stuff shared in there from time to time. So feel free to check it out. You can subscribe on the website, www.mamaworkit.com. And without further ado, I'm going to read you a little story I wrote called The Tattoo. Enjoy. The Tattoo. It was December 12th, 2022. My appointment was at 10 a.m. I'd scheduled it at that time because our part-time nanny would be there to watch my youngest after I'd already dropped off my older kids at school. Despite my being responsible in this way, I felt nothing of the sort. The night before, I'd had a terrible dream about frivolously shopping at Bergdorf Goodman in New York City with an old friend when I needed to actually be picking up my son at school. I had no business shopping at Bergdorf nor shopping in general during this particularly tight financial season of life. Also, I live in California, not New York. Dreams can be strange and yet so in tune. The cost was a measly $250, but even that felt like a stretch during that season. I'd convinced myself it was a necessary expense, though, and it was a meaningful and spiritual step in my journey. It would be something I'd look at daily and be reminded of my closeness to God and the universe. It would calm my nerves when I was feeling shaky about life and business decisions as a newer entrepreneur. It would reassure me when I was doubting my path. It would remind me to surrender and trust the process when all I seemed to be doing was seeking out control. In my mind, it was worth far more than $250. It was priceless. That morning, as I nervously stopped at the ATM and withdrew the balance I owed, I couldn't help but feel uneasy, unsteady, off balance. I drove to the appointment in secret. It felt almost embarrassing to tell anyone this is what I was doing on a Monday morning, instead of working, instead of being a mom. My intuition was coming on strong, and everything inside me screamed, "Don't go, don't do it." And yet, all I could do was silence the internal screams with placating attempts to assure myself These were just nerves because I was doing something outside my comfort zone. Here's the thing about comfort zones, though. It's good to get out of them. And actually, I'm a huge fan of going outside your comfort zone regularly. Leaving your comfort zone promotes growth. It gives you wings. It makes you feel invincible. But as much as I tried to convince myself that getting outside my comfort zone was exactly what I was doing, this was not that. This was going to the bad zone. It was like leaving the comfort zone and continuing on into a space that had signs that say keep out and danger zone. And yet here I was walking in semi-confidently even, because I'm not the type of girl you can scare away easily. That's right. Tell me I can't do something or I shouldn't do something, and my first reaction isn't to reflect on your words. It's, watch me, bitch. So despite my intuition clearly warning me not to go, my nerves playing tricks on me, and even my GPS bringing me to the wrong location, true story, my stubborn self powered through and arrived at the tattoo shop right on time. I was greeted by the owner and artist who rushed me in and quickly measured 2 sizes of the same design stencil on my forearm, where I said I wanted the placement to be. At first, she put it upside down, at least in my eyes. No, I said, it goes the opposite way. Sure, whatever you like, was her response. I looked at the stencil in the mirror for a minute. I was anything but sure this is what I wanted. The energy in the room was a hurried, almost stressful vibe filled with shallow breathing and the smell of caffeine. The pressure to get started was high and impatient. I laid down on the table, left arm straight out, and started to take some deep breaths as the painful artistry began. 20 minutes later, I was inked. I paid my balance and a tip and hopped into my car, still shaking. I should have felt excited. I tried, but I felt sick. I immediately questioned myself, my sanity, and for the next few days avoided looking at my arm like the plague. The sight of the tattoo repulsed me. It was supposed to be meaningful and delivering peace and security, yet all it brought me was angst, a reminder of a poor decision, an ironic, cruel joke to listen to your gut, even though I had done anything but. I didn't even tell my husband I'd gotten it for 3 days. I knew he would be disappointed in my decision, and because I already felt such disappointment in myself, I was terrified to layer on any more of it from anyone else. One late night, just as I was starting to accept this mistake I had made, I came across the various sketches of the tattoo design the artist had sent me weeks prior in my phone's photo gallery. I'd had a few similar options to review, but ended up choosing the first, most simple design she'd sent. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly realized my tattoo, the one on my actual skin, was not the choice I'd made, the one we'd agreed upon. I couldn't believe I hadn't caught this in the shop when she measured the design stencils and placement on my arm. While the difference wasn't huge, it was still different, and the part that was incorrect had been a hard no the first time I saw it, not even a questionable option. By that Friday, just 4 days from ink day, I was researching the tattoo removal process and felt a smidge better that I had options to get rid of this choice I so regretted. I came across a blog article of someone's tattoo removal journey who'd had not only a similar experience of wanting to remove her tattoo days after she'd gotten it, but a similar design as well. It seemed like this would inevitably be my next step. Over the next few weeks, I researched everything about different types of lasers, reputable tattoo removal companies, and costs related to it. I'd have to wait 6 weeks to start the process, and that measly $250 and 25-minute process would now be turning into thousands and years to complete. I felt so ashamed. I felt so awful. I felt so dumb. Thankfully, winter was upon us, and I was able to wear long sleeves day in and day out. This not only helped me conceal the tattoo from anyone else and not have to talk about my big fat mistake, it also helped me not have to be reminded of it by accidentally glancing at it numerous times per day. I did everything over the next few months to keep my tattoo under wraps. I slept in hoodies. I worked out in long sleeves. I locked the door every time I showered for fear one of my kids would enter and see it. And then spring arrived, and so did warmer weather. One particularly hot afternoon of 90 degrees Fahrenheit, I could not handle it. I took off my layered long sleeve shirt and exposed my tattoo. Well, technically, I exposed it, although I strategically moved my arm in ways no one noticed. I still wasn't ready to face my shame publicly. Soon enough, I needed to come to terms with the fact that this tattoo, even if it would end up being temporary, was something I needed to let out of its cage, or sleeve for that matter. And the audience I feared discovering it most was living right under my roof, my kids. As a mom, I had always tried to set the right example, make good decisions, pave the path for a life of smart, responsible, good citizens ahead. And yet, here I was, 38 years old, having to tell my children I made a big, expensive, dumb mistake. I feared their judgment. I feared their questioning my judgment. I feared, so I hid until I couldn't sweat it out anymore, literally. It's not that I didn't want my kids to ever get tattoos. It's that I didn't want them to make decisions they'd later regret. And I knew without a doubt, if I'd only listened to my intuition that day, I wouldn't have felt the remorse I did for my arm art. The funny part of all this is when I sat down with my kids and told them about the tattoo, they cared so little. They even said they liked it and questioned why I was removing it. The conversation wasn't meant to discourage tattoos, but to be a teachable moment about trusting your intuition and how important it is to listen to it when faced with decisions, big or small. After that conversation, it instantly felt like my shame, guilt, and anxiety over the tattoo had been lifted. I still wanted to get rid of it, but I was no longer ashamed of myself for doing it. It was freeing. That tattoo made me realize a lot of things about my judgment, my gut, myself. The thing I didn't expect, though, was how much more I was affected by it because of my role as a mom. Motherhood has layered in additional pressure, anxiety, stress, and shame in every decision I make. Not only do I feel the need to parent others well, I realize the need to parent myself along the way. I no longer regret the tattoo, even though I'm still in the arduous process of removing it 2 years later. It taught me things and gave me permission to open my vulnerability door to my children, one that was often deadbolt locked shut. I do wish the removal process was quicker and cheaper, but maybe I needed to sit with that ink as long as I did to fully receive the gift it gave me. P.S. I don't hate tattoos. I still think about getting another one, but if and when I do, I'll listen to my intuition and trust where it's guiding me. Well, thank you so much for listening to that. It was such a therapeutic process for me to write that essay, that story. And this is my first time releasing it into the world. So thank you for being a captive audience and listening to it. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that this will help you to feel a little more courageous in being vulnerable when it comes to sharing things in your life, whether it be about this tattoo or any sort of situation that feels like it needs to be in the closed book. Let this be your permission to open the book. All right, mama friends, I will see you soon. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the Mama Work It community. All right, keep on working it. Bye.